Welcome everyone. Thanks for taking the time to come out this evening. It is a pleasant evening than some of the evenings we have had before, so I wanted to thank everyone first of all, and then also introduce my name again. My name is Ruby Malik. I would like to request to be the UCP candidate for Edmonton, Beverly, Clareview. I'd like to introduce myself. First of all, I've been working with the Government of Canada for the past 12 years in different capacities, started from the frontline services and worked my way up to managing large grants and contribution funding for the 4 Western provinces as well as for Northwest Territories and Yukon. Sorry, I have a little bit of sore throat, so voice gets scratchy. Currently, I'm working with the Department of Status of Women, working on issues of gender equity and equality across the Western region. Through my work, I've had the privilege to meet and work with lots of Albertans across Alberta, from all the way north to rural to major cities. And that has provided me to hear and listen throughout these years on some of the concerns they have had, and then by being in the center of where I am standing right now in this constituency, relate how things work right from our constituency to the broader picture of Alberta. The areas that I work in, enhancing leadership, promoting economic security and prosperity, and addressing violence, these are issues that are prevalent across our province and different ways of addressing those. So that has given me insight into some of the things that are happening here locally as well. My husband, Faz, and I are proud parents of 3 young women. 2 of them are here today. 2 of them go to University of Alberta. They're seeking post-secondary education here. My Canadian post-secondary education is from in social work area. I lived in Abbotsford in 2008, and my daughters went to Lawton School here, to Rundle School, and I've been volunteering and working with the non-profit community organizations ever since. So I've been part of Pandora Society. I've been working very diligently with some aspects of Win House, Safe Place, and Tegler Youth Center. Still part of volunteering at Lawton and Rundle School in different capacities. I know community involvement and engagement is the foundation of community building, and I think being local means being involved. And that's my motto, and that's what I've carried on. This is the place where I started off in Abbotsford, and this constituency is where my heart is, and that's why I'm here. It is important to me to be actively involved, to know the concerns of the residents, and to make a positive difference. I've knocked on over 4,000 doors in just the past 3 months, and I've heard the concept. Time's up. Okay.
Thank you, Ruby. Next is David.
Hello everyone, my name is David Egan. I'm running for the honor to be your United Conservative Party candidate in Edmonton, Beverly, Clareview. I would like to start by thanking you all very much for coming and showing us how concerned you are about your community, your future, and your children's future. This turnout is a great sign of how passionate people are to bring back a responsible government to the province of Alberta. The task of once again electing a Conservative MLA here will be a challenge, one of the toughest in the province. But I know that with the right candidate, a strong constituency association, and dedicated supporters like yourselves, this riding is absolutely winnable for the UCP. The residents of Edmonton, Beverly, Clareview need a local candidate that is connected to the community. This is exactly why I am seeking the nomination. I was born, raised, work, and live in Northeast Edmonton. This has always been and will always be my home. I am also one of the few blue-collar workers who is seeking a UCP nomination. I have been working as a power engineer, serving in managerial and training roles for over 10 years. My wife and I also own several small businesses in this area, and we understand the punishing effects of poor NDP government policies. I too have a university education in environmental sciences, and absolutely know a carbon tax does not support the environment. I want prosperity for my community, I want to build a family here with my wife, Prasanna, who I married in the middle of my campaign at McGrath Mansion down the road from here. And I want young people to move here and grow their families here as well. I want to be your local candidate, your blue-collar representative in the legislature, and this starts with your support and vote on November 17th. Thank you.
Next is Roger.
Hello. Thanks everyone for being here. My name is Roger Fojo. I'm a former school teacher of Spanish language. I taught Spanish language in high school for 9 years. And currently, I'm a translator and interpreter in 3 languages, French, Spanish, and English. Currently, I'm representing Able Translation, which is an Ontarian company, branch of Edmonton. I'm also a fiction writer. I do write books, novels in French language, and some of those have been used in the Department of Modern Language and Cultural Studies at UFA. It was a great honor for me. What I can say else about me is I live in this constituency with my wife and 2 kids. I volunteer a lot in this constituency and beyond, mostly giving hours of free translation and interpreting to newcomers in Edmonton, assisting them with language-related free services. I'm running today to be your MLA because I think that I have sufficient skills to do what I'm supposed to do. I want to bring my experience to the House so I can work alongside with other conservatives to bring the prosperity back that Alberta needs so much. What I can say else is that following the unity, I sat on the board of director of the interim board of the UCP, giving a lot of volunteering time, and I was elected member of the permanent board as well, and now I'm running to follow up that work at a higher level, which is in the legislature. I think that my being with the conservative movement is this lifelong engagement, and today I will not stop until I get what I'm here for. I will get this opportunity to thank my competitors as well for putting their names forward in this race, because they are tough and they made me a better candidate. Thank you.
The next part of this speaker's forum will be asking each one of them, each of them will be answering 3 different questions. Our first question is on the provincial forum. It is, how do you plan to increase revenue after the carbon tax is replaced? And we'll start with Ruby.
So in order to be fiscally prudent and have a balanced annual operating budget, the repealing of the carbon tax is necessary. And I've heard that loud and clear when I was door knocking across the constituency. And in order to offset that revenue, a few of the recommendations I have, it needs to be a multi-pronged approach. We know that the burden that it has on Albertans, we would need to have different ways, because it is generating quite a bit of revenue, but it is being generated on the backs of Albertans, and that's what we want to change. There are lots of untapped and undertapped potential exists in the business environment, so we would have to create maybe different international trade capacities with 2 fastest growing economies, for example. We need to have larger markets internationally for the oil. We need to have the pipelines built. We need to have the revenue generated through oil and gas, and then have incentives for companies that they are starting to come back and do the business that we need to have here. It could also be by prioritizing some of the fiscal prudency that we need to have. For example, frontline staffing positions need to be prioritized rather than having over management and administration. when making budget choices and minimizing the bureaucracy at all levels. And that's something in area that I have been working on that side of public service and know firsthand that the middle management, there's lots of efficiencies that could be developed there. Achieving more economic growth by adopting a streamlined legislative and fiscal framework that enables private sector investment and prosperity balanced with environmental responsibility is a key. So different ways. Still, our leader has mentioned that we need to have some of the big carbon emitters still be taxed, and I do think that's a great idea, but it should not be all on the back of all Albertans equally.
Thank you, Ruby.
So just to be clear, I don't believe we have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. In Alberta, we spend 20% more per capita by our government. But to answer your question, I have 2 points. Number one, actually build the pipeline. We need to get our product out of Alberta and into world markets accessible by Tidewater. Did you know that a barrel of oil sells for just over $13 right now from Alberta, while the global price of oil is about 65? Do you know what the largest contributing factor to that discount is? Lack of pipelines, and only having one customer to sell to. Fixing this problem and overcoming the foreign bodies that are trying to negatively influence our ethical, clean, and environmentally friendly energy industry would restore hundreds of billions of dollars to the Canadian economy and government coffers every year. Alberta is the economic engine of Canada, and we have the third largest reserves in the world. We need to leverage this asset to pay for our schools, hospitals, and roads. Our leader, Jason Kenney, said it best: in order to be compassionate, you must first be prosperous. Number two, aside from building pipelines, trade partnerships with ports like Prince Rupert, Shanghai, and Jamnagar in India give us the access to already built infrastructure through rail networks, roads, and a recently expanded airport to establish a massive distribution, logistics, and warehousing port right here in Edmonton called Port Alberta. Unlike the Calgary Olympics bid, this would cost little to no taxpayer dollars, while generating billions of dollars in revenue, create thousands of jobs, and help to diversify our economy.
Thank you for this honest question. The question is, how would you cover the loss, the money loss, when the carbon tax is scrapped? I call it honest question because for me, carbon tax is not about reduction of CO2 emissions. Carbon tax is about collection of revenue. I think so. So when the carbon tax is scrapped, for sure, the government will lose money. And how do we cover that money that is lost? When the carbon tax is scrapped, the cost of energy will go down. With the cost of energy going down, the companies will produce more at the same cost. By doing so, by producing more, they need more workers. And they will resume with their hiring program again, because right now everything is stopped because of the high cost of production. When the cost of production goes down, company will be hiring more. By hiring more, we have more workers that will pay income tax. If we have more workers paying income tax, the government will cover the money lost with the repeal of carbon tax. And another thing is, companies will get more money left. After all costs have been cleared, they will get more money left because they are not paying carbon tax anymore. If they have more money left, that money can be used in the company development, in expansion. If the company expands, we have more workers working and paying more income taxes. The company itself will make more profit. More profit means more money paid to the government. This is how the carbon tax scrap will be covered by the job recovery, by the job creation, by income tax payment to the government. Thank you.
Thank you, Our second question to the candidates is, on a city level, how do you plan city to reduce poverty? And we'll start with David on this question.
Well, first, the best way to address poverty is by creating jobs. The city's affordable housing plan creates new surplus school sites, like the former Rundle School, to establish new affordable housing developments in older communities. We can work with the city to incorporate affordable housing into new developments, while ensuring that there is fair and transparent public engagement processes in the older neighborhoods. Second, investing in our kids and our communities through organizations like the Rundle Boys and Girls Club down the road from here, that I've been volunteering at for over 8 years. This is a great way to ensure that future generations can fight poverty too. I have a great relationship with many city councillors, including John Zadek and Tony Caterina. I also work for a partner of the City of Edmonton at a city facility in this riding. Building on these relationships and establishing strong dialogue between governments is the best way to ensure that we have a strong, mutually beneficial connection and can utilize these to reduce and one day eliminate poverty in our city and our province.
Thank you, David. Roger, you're next.
Yes, what can we do? What can we do to reduce poverty in the city? We have to point out that we have two types of poverty. The visible poverty that includes people without shelter, people without food, without future. This is the visible poverty. There is another type, more intimate, we can see. Those that includes people who might have a job, working tirelessly, but cannot afford vacations because they are having hard time making ends meet. So the first type of poverty, yes, can be tackled by the city by providing shelter, affordable housing to people in the condition that those affordable housing, I already discussed this online with most of you, in the condition that this affordable housing is discussed and set up with the agreement of the community. We will have 4 stakeholders sitting and discussing before this is implemented, including the City of Edmonton, including the real estate developer, including the government of Alberta, and including the community where the affordable housing has to be installed. Why? Because when I was done knocking, I heard about it a lot. People rejecting affordable housing because they think it is cause for insecurity. They feel not secure because of that, for some reason. Maybe they are right, maybe they are wrong, but in these terms, I heard that affordable housing draw insecurity. So the type of poverty we can see, the government will solve that by creating conditions of better jobs, sustainable jobs for everybody, and we can end up with invisible poverty. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Beverly.
So currently, 1 out of every 8 citizens lives in poverty in Edmonton, which comes up to about a little over 100,000 people here. And in our constituency, we have a fair share of that. Edmonton has done quite a bit of work on that through one of the organizations or a coalition of organizations calling End Poverty Edmonton. I've been part of it for the last 10 years in different parts of the city, and specifically in this constituency in Clareview, Abbotsfield, and Beverly Heights and Beverly area. That a number of organizations have come up and done lots of work that we could definitely build on. They came up, they consulted 28, they consulted lots of organizations, I think more than 28. However, after consulting Edmontonians one-on-one, thousands of Edmontonians as well as online survey and in-person engagements, 28 priorities were identified. And then they synthesized them into 6 big game changers, which included in the strategy that End Poverty Edmonton put out, that we need to have a livable income that needs to be worked on. We need to have the right stakeholders in place to have communication and dialogue started, and then go from there. So one was livable income, affordable housing, eliminating racism, accessible and affordable transit, affordable and quality childcare, and access to mental health services. So out of the 28 priorities, these 6 were synthesized into the game changers that we need to be having the stakeholders, in my opinion, together, having a dialogue started, and then working on it. I know how poverty affects our communities, working firsthand with the Candora Society here. I've seen different ways of it. I certainly don't come from a wealthy background myself and have seen quite a bit of that myself and the families that I've been associating with. I've seen some parts of that also through families I interact with, Tegger Youth Center. So there's lots of things that could be done.
Thank you, Ruth. Our third question is on a constituency level. It's how are you planning to bring business to this constituency? Roger, you're first.
How do we plan to bring businesses in our constituency? We are lucky enough in this constituency to have an industrial heartland. It's called industrial heartland. It's half of the constituency. One half, the western part is residential, and the eastern part is industrial. So if I'm elected, I will propose legislation, pieces of legislation that tend to revitalize that part of the constituency, the heartland. We are just a constituency. We are not the government. This is the question. So, as constituency, we don't have a legislative power to enact a legislative program, to enact a fiscal program for ourselves. So, it is hard to say that we may reduce taxes to incentivize companies to install over there. It's not possible. But as MLA, I can work on offering companies another type of incentives that are not fiscal, like negotiating good deals on land acquisition, negotiating good deals on utility supplies. And those are big companies. We don't forget small companies that makes 95% of our industries. So small companies will be encouraged to look into what type of businesses they can make profitably in our constituency. Given the age of our constituency, we are pretty old in this constituency, dated from the 50s. So they look what type can work better with the age of our constituency, like maintenance, like renovation.
Thank you. Thank you, Roger.
So how to bring business to our constituency? In my opinion, business development is as much about people and relationships as it is about profit. Showing businesses and business leaders the opportunities in the riding of Beverly Clareview will be the key to action and opportunity. Opportunity starts with people. We need to engage with people who are doing business here, be them small, medium, or larger ones. I've heard from lots of friends have been helping me door knock, and the friends that are not part of Northeast Edmonton, specifically in this constituency, they've noticed we don't have fancy stores in the riding or in the constituency. And why is that? Some have asked, which mall do you have? So some of those things that we might not have noticed sometimes when the people from other parts of the city are visiting. And that's a question that kind of relates to the question asked there, relates to what's being asked here, why the businesses are not opening here. And door knocking and visiting businesses on 118 Avenue, I've heard over and over again that many times revitalization and redevelopment programs and different initiatives have been taking place in the past 3 years or beyond even, but those seem to be bandage solutions. We need a strategy to have the redevelopment of the overall business development point of view, where people are, the small businesses, medium businesses are thriving. They are getting out of survival mode. They're not worrying about minimum wage and laying off workers. Their business moves from survival to thriving just like the families need to. If you elect me as your candidate, I will connect the people of this constituency to businesses, get the right stakeholders. I think we need to have people are the first stakeholder here, and then the businesses that they are running, what perspective they bring, and then who are the policy makers, who are the business doers, from small to larger ones. So we need to engage at all levels.
Thank you, Ruby.
Supporting a market that generates revenue for its residents encourages continued investment into revitalizing our communities and, most importantly, generating jobs for our residents. I'm going to fight to lower taxes and to cut red tape. I'm your local candidate with experience in Northeast Edmonton's energy sector. Growing up in Northeast Edmonton, I've seen many of my friends and family complete college or university and move out of this area. I want to find a way to make this blue-collar area appealing to new and growing families again. And to me, a great starting point is to have a local, blue-collar, born and raised Northeast Edmontonian as your representative in the legislature. We need to have to support industrial development in and around our city. This includes the Alberta Industrial Heartland and the Edmonton Energy and Technology Park. This alone will generate 50,000 jobs once fully developed. We had cities all over North America fighting to get Amazon's new headquarters because of the promised 50,000 jobs, when we have a shovel-ready project of similar caliber waiting to be developed in Northeast Edmonton.
Thank you, David. Oh, welcome back. Okay. We've got a number of questions here, and we're going to try to run through a few of them for you. The first question is, what are your plans to defeat the incumbent in this constituency? And Ruby, you're first.
So first of all, looking at what he had promised and what he was not able to deliver, because that's where things start. Lots of people have said the economic decline in the past 3 years has been detrimental to the families. And where did the gap happen? They were hoping when the incumbent was elected that the things will prosper, the change happened based on that reason and the promises that were made. The incumbent has had 2 terms, and he has had a lot of time to deliver lots of things, and in my opinion has not been able to deliver on a long list of things. So we need to start there. We need to point that out, that it's time for change. We need to have the conservative values back here. We need to have the economy at the forefront. We need to have the pipelines built. We need to have the jobs created. We need to bring the businesses back. We need to have multiple options for trade. We need to have maximized way of having our best commodity that we have, oil, build on. We need to have value-added industry here. We need to build on what we have and not start losing and have bandit solutions like has been happening in the past 3 years for sure. And what has happened to the constituency in the past 2 terms is time. This is a very winnable, very for sure winnable constituency for Conservatives. We've had it for many times, and it's time for us to get it back. And that's why we need to have a strong candidate who is a very strong voice for this constituency, who not only knows the concerns but also needs to get them voiced in a very fresh and strong way around the table where the decisions would be made. Thank you.
You know, I'm actually very happy you asked that question, because we're going up against a very strong candidate. This candidate got 74% of the vote last election. 74%. This is going to be a tough one to beat. We're going up against a local candidate that's very connected to the community. So what I think is we need to send in a candidate that's also connected to the community. We need to also send in a local candidate. That's our best chance of winning. We need to send somebody in that can get every single Conservative in this riding to vote together. And if we do that, this riding is absolutely winnable for the UCP. we can bring this riding back to the Conservatives and turn this riding blue again. Thank you.
Yes, to go against the incumbent of in this constituency, he's the Minister of Economic Development and Trade. I call him the government. So I want to engage in a very polite campaign. I will not get into personal attacks. I know Mr. Daron Bellos is somebody, he is loved in this riding. People love him. He is kind, he is polite, and he does things as much as he can. But I will let people know that yes, we love him. He's a smiley guy, good looking, but he's in the wrong party. So his policy, we will focus on his policy. Policy against policy, no personal attacks, never. So we say you work hard, but in the wrong direction. We need you in the UCP. We need all the skills and the efforts you have. So we're gonna get things changed to go other way. To go the way of the prosperity, not to go the way of damaging our economy. He is a good person, but in a wrong party. His efforts are going against our party. This is what, against our province, this is what I will point out. I will insist on taxes. They are a party who raise taxes, and we in the UCP are the party who lower taxes to give some breath to job creators so they can have room for more job creation. I will point that out, and I think they cannot challenge the UCP on the grounds of lowering taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Our next question that we'd like to pose to you is, would you ever vote against the party line? And we'll start with David this time.
Well, as I mentioned, I just got married. My wife and I, we want to start a family here. And I think part of being a parent is making tough decisions. And a lot of those decisions sometimes aren't ones that appease everybody. But we're running to be party representatives. And that means supporting what is in the best interest of the community, the province, and sometimes that means making unpopular decisions. So I think generally speaking, I will toe the party lines. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Roger, you next.
Yes, tough question. If I get elected MLA, I know most of the time we think we are doing good for our constituency, but the party comes up and say, this is what the whip wants you, this is the vote you have to produce. We are waiting for this result. So what I will do, I will come back to and consult with you guys. Is this the right thing to do for us? Are we protecting our constituency by doing so? And my vote will be based on what you ask me to do. If it is against the party, we might first try to lobby with other MLAs and try to take things in our advantage if we can. If we cannot, I will follow my constituency. Thank you.
Ruby, thank you.
So I am part of the conservative movement because my values align with it. I'm part of the team now as a volunteer, dedicated member, and I want to be part of the decision-making UCP team when it's elected. My role would be, first and foremost, to be the voice, the strongest voice possible of the constituents that do give me a vote of confidence and send me to the legislature. So my first obligation is to listen and have a very strong opinion of what my constituents are saying and take that in my role to the decision-making table and voice it and have it heard loud and clear before the decision is made. So after that, the party looks at the larger picture and then decides what's better for all Albertans, but I don't want our voice not to be heard. I want it heard loud and clear. I want it be counted for as a very strong voice and what our needs are. So we need to have that communicated through a strong candidate, and that's why I'm standing up here requesting for your vote, because that's the obligation you will be giving me. I'll be obligated to. Once the party looks at the larger picture and has our voice incorporated into it, for sure I'll be standing beside the leader, beside the party for the larger picture's good. But my first and foremost role is to the people here, have their strong voice, taking it to that ledge and having it heard and having it be incorporated into the final decision making. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have one more question that we're going to be able to do tonight. Okay, our last question then is going to be, we have a lot of environmental issues. What can we do to change this? And we'll start with Roger this time.
What we can do to change the environmental issues is, first of all, spot those problems. I think the major environmental issue we have is carbon emission into the atmosphere that impacts our environment as a whole. So before we tackle that, we're gonna check with science the best way to go. I think that imposing carbon tax is not the best way to go. Carbon tax is about the revenue, it's not about doing any good to the environment, because the carbon tax is not reducing the carbon emission. Once I took the example of Norway, with the implementation of carbon tax 10 years ago, because the carbon tax in Alberta is pretty new, it is difficult to evaluate how it works. But I took the example of Norway, a study over 10 years, they did not achieve a 2% reduction, with a higher rate of like $45 per ton. They couldn't reduce it. So we have to find other ways that is scientific based. We need to get researchers at work so they tell us exactly what to do. At the same time, we don't have to harm jobs in Alberta because of a system that is not working. We need to rely on science, get from the researchers what we need to do. This is my plan. And who will finance that is not the government. The government is not to fund that research. This is the private sector. To propose a clean energy, it has to follow the market. That is the role of supply and demand. If it is cheap and good, people will buy it. If it's not, we will still rely on the fossil fuel. Thank you.
We do have to be very responsible for the environment. Why? Because that's something that we leave beyond our lifetimes. We leave it for the next generation. So we have to be very environmentally responsible, but not at the detriment of our economy. So carbon tax, as mentioned before, is not the right approach to do stuff. It's a detriment on the economic side. But as in the vision statement, I read the UCP declaration on policy that's out there. On the industry side, even it's mentioned that the fine balance of the private sector investment, the economic growth and prosperity with the environmental responsibility, that's the fine balance that we would have to find. So once elected, more details of that would come out. However, we have to be very environmentally responsible, but based on research and facts, and we need to have innovative ways of having the factual information and not just base things on some of the myths that are out there or some of the science that is being used. We need to have a much more comprehensive approach and we need to have very well-informed decision. There are many ways of being environmentally responsible. We need to hold companies accountable, have those checks and balances built in so that we are not destroying the environment for our future generations. But that doesn't mean that we stop and close the door on economic development. So that's the balance that I need to see. But environmental responsibility for generations that are to come after us and after them, we have to leave this planet in a condition the best way that we can. Thank you.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I actually have an environmental education. I'm one course from getting my environmental degree. That I've been doing while working full-time, while getting married, while volunteering on 3 political boards, and doing this. So I like being busy. I actually work for the biofuel industry in this riding. I work for a private company that's working in partnership with the government to tackle environmental issues. Private industry is interested in doing this, and they're using private investment dollars to do this too. We just need to find ways to support practical and pragmatic approaches to dealing with environmental issues. Please visit my website after this is done, davidegan.ca, and I actually have access to my blog that talks about environmental policy from a conservative perspective, particularly my one on the carbon tax, and why I do not support it. So, ultimately, as long as we can support sustainable initiatives, I love using that word because if something is not sustainable on the economic side, as soon as the money dries up, any initiative, it doesn't matter how moral or how noble it is, becomes moot. So we need to support sustainable initiatives, and that's how we protect our environment in the future. Thank you.
This regular president of the board is going to come up and have a few words.
All right, guys. Thanks for nominating for him, the president of the CA. And we've got some 3 great candidates up here. Happy to see them all here. The question was asked me about Jeff Walters. Jeff has withdrawn his candidacy as of yesterday. So just so everyone's aware that there's only 3 candidates running in this riding now. And I thought everyone should know that. Also, closing statements. We've had a request from a couple of the candidates to have closing statements. Roger, are you okay with the closing statement? Yep. Okay, so we'll do a minute. Okay, we'll do 1 minute for closing statement. And yeah, Harry, if you can go down.
Okay, thanks everyone for coming here tonight. This province has been good for all of us, and
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I was saying this province has been good for all of us until the economic crisis came, and some chose to pack and go. We are here to stay and fix. We are not backpackers. Quitters are not winners. We have to stay and fix. Just like a bicycle, when you get a bicycle that breaks, you don't recycle it. If you like it, you fix it. Don't recycle my province. Please, we are here to fix. We are not here to quit. So, what I have to say is, if you came here without knowing for whom you're going to vote, remember my name. With 2 years of campaigning, 2 years of campaigning in the UCP, 6 months campaigning for myself, 2 hours discussing with you here. Now you know what you're going to do. On November 17, I rely on your wisdom to make the good decision for our constituency. Remember, Roger Fujo. Thank you.
One more time, Harry. Press it one more time. Press that button one more time. There you go. Cool. All right, David. Yeah, over to you. Thanks.
Well, my name is David Egan. I'm ready to work hard for you, and I want to start door knocking as your candidate on November 18th. It is going to take hard work, grassroots campaigning, and a few pairs of shoes to give the people of Beverly Clareview a reason to vote for the UCP in 2019. I'm electable to younger voters, the undecided voters, swing voters, and blue Tories, and it is going to be essential if we plan to win in 2019 for us to cater to all of them. I will fight for lower taxes, I will fight to give voters of Beverly and Clareview a voice in the legislature and a reason to vote for the UCP and not just against the NDP. As an MLA, my job will be to act in your best interests. I'm asking you to vote in the best interests of this party and for the candidate that will ensure that we win in this riding in 2019. I have the education, professional experience, and work ethic to give people a reason to vote for us and to paint this riding blue next spring. Vote Conservative, vote local, vote integrity, vote David Egan. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm running because I want to make a difference. I'm running because my heart is here. I've had a strong connection with the community, even though I've moved out of the constituency. That does not mean that I do not have a strong connection. Being involved over 10 years with grassroots, many organizations, is because of passion that I have to be involved from where I've lived and where my home has been and still is. Based on the professional experience, the educational background that I have, the grassroots knowledge, to working with the other counterparts at the provincial or territorial level, all the diverse different angles of this make me a stronger candidate. I want to be the strongest voice possible for the constituents of Beverly Clareview, and I would like to request, please vote for me on November 17th. Remember Ruby Malek. Thank you.
So sorry we went a little bit long. I know we try to keep within the hour. We cut back the number of questions just because we want to try to keep this in a short time span. However, I would invite you to stay. Candidates will have time to come down off the stage, and you can ask them questions direct, and you can mingle with them for the next 50 minutes. We've got to be out of the hall by 9. So thanks for coming out. I appreciate it.
Hello, my name is Roger Fojo. I'm a member of the United Conservative Party, and here we are in the hall of Beverly Heights Community League. We just have a debate among candidates. We are 3 candidates running for nomination in the United Conservative Party, and I was one of them. So the debate was very useful tonight for the candidate to explain their platform and for the public to know exactly what every candidate stands for. So I think that the debate was so constructive and helped me explain my platform to people by answering their question. So many questions the audience had were answered, and I think the satisfaction was at the highest. So in the UCP, we have a general platform, but any candidate has their own platform within the constituency. From day one, let know my platform when I was done knocking, letting people, explaining to people what I'm intending to do for the constituency. Is basically the same thing I had to develop tonight with more details. And the audience was so excited to know about every item I put in it. Now I'm asking for your vote because, as you have seen tonight, I deserve that vote because I'm showing you what I stand for. I show you all items like healthcare. We've talked about environment. We have talked about jobs. We've talked about taxes and so many useful items within the United Conservative Party. You should get out and vote on November 17 to elect the MLA of Edmonton, Beverly, Clareview, because this is essential for us to get the actual government out of business with their damaging policy for our province. We need things back. We need to get the prosperity back in Alberta, and by so doing, we're gonna have a province that is thriving for a couple of decades again. If the oil and gas sector is down, that is because of regulation. It's not just because of prices. This is one example to show you that it's about the regulations. It's not about the prices of gas. So With good regulations, the UCP is proposing, we will have a better province with better and sustainable jobs. Mon nom c'est Roger Foggio, je suis ici dans le hall, dans le hall de Beverly, de Beverly Heights Community League, et nous venons d'avoir un débat entre les candidats du Parti conservateur uni qui recherchent la nomination au sein du parti, concourant pour le poste de député pour les élections législatives qui arrivent en 2019. J'ai expliqué mon programme aux membres du parti qui étaient réunis ce soir. Depuis que j'ai fait la campagne, j'essaie d'expliquer et ce soir, c'était le jour où il fallait développer en détail et les membres ont été très satisfaits de l'apprendre. Ils ont posé des questions, ils ont obtenu des réponses satisfaisantes. Pour cette raison, je pense que je suis le candidat vers qui votre vote doit aller parce que ce soir, je vous ai montré que j'avais la réponse à plusieurs de nos préoccupations. Votez le Parti conservateur uni aux élections législatives de l'année prochaine, c'est voter pour le retour de la prospérité en Alberta. Mais avant cela, vous devez sortir le samedi 17 novembre et voter pour la nomination d'abord. Et ceci, c'est votre devoir civique. Vous rendez service à la province, vous rendez service à notre démocratie en Alberta. Je vous remercie. Mon nom, c'est Roger Foggio.